Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, my dear brothers and sisters, and congratulations to all of the viewers on this period, the period of the birth of Imam al-Rada, salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh. We continue with our tafsir of the Holy Quran, looking at Surah 112, known as Surah Al-Tawheed. How many times have you been asked the question related to God's existence, or related to defining God? Or someone who blatantly just comes to you and tells me, tell me about your Lord. What is your Lord? Describe to me your Lord. What type of answer would you give that person? It's a very difficult question. You know, I don't mind if someone comes and asks me a question about the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family. I'm ready to answer that question. I could talk about his 63 years in this world. Or if someone comes and asks me about Imam Ali alayhi salam, they tell me about Imam Ali alayhi salam. I'll be able to talk about, say, the words of wisdom of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Or they ask me about Muharram, Karbala, Ashura. How long could you talk about that for? You could talk about that for hours on end. When someone asks you about your Lord, give me the definition of God. Explain to me God. I want to know how you relate to God. It becomes a completely different conversation. Because I believe that in the world today, there is no difference between what we're seeing in discussions generally in the world regarding God compared to 1,400 years ago. This book is not a book of history. This book is trying to let you understand the same discussions that you're having and the same debates that you're undertaking is exactly the same discussions that were happening at the time of the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family. The question every human being in the world, one way or another, will always ask is, does God exist? Do you agree with that? Now in the world, how many different groups of people do we have when it comes to the definition of God, or dare I add, gods? You've got some people who fall into the category of being atheist. Yes, they don't believe that God exists. There are others who fall in the category of being agnostic. Something out there, but I can't necessarily plug the gap by saying it is God or Allah or whatever other name you want to give it. There are others out there who say that, look, we are deists. We believe that there is a God. But this whole idea that God is part of your life, how we, for example, congregate and read dua and expect God to answer, there's no such thing. Listen, God creates everything, and then after that, there is no real communication, for example, between the creation and the creator. Then you have, for example, monotheists. We try and categorize ourselves as the followers of the name of this surah. What's the name of this surah? Tawheed. Now I know some of you were looking at me and saying, Sayyidina, the name Surah Al-Ikhlas. And you have a point, because Ikhlas is one of the names. But let's focus on Tawheed, because in reality, you cannot have sincerity in any act unless you have an understanding of your Lord. Otherwise, the act can be done for my best friend to show off to others, whereas true Ikhlas emerges when one understands true Tawheed. So what you have with Surah Al-Tawheed is this surah that is so meritorious that the number of different traditions associated with the surah are phenomenal. How many of you have heard that if you recite Surah Al-Tawheed once, it's as if you've recited 1/3 of the Quran? Would you believe that there is a hadith that states if you recite Surah Al-Tawheed once, it's like it's 1/3 of the Quran, 1/3 of the Bible, 1/3 of the Torah, 1/3 of the Zabur. Why? Because originally those books, what was their main message? Tawheed. Originally, the Bible and the Torah, the Zabur, the Quran, what is their main message originally? That a person believes in one God. Of course, what later happened with that theology isn't our concern just yet. But when a person tells me, Sayyidina, did you know that if you recite Surah Al-Ikhlas, for example, or Surah Al-Tawheed once, that's like you've completed 1/3 of the Quran? I say, no, Imam said 1/3 of the Quran, 1/3 of the Bible, 1/3 of the Torah, and 1/3 of the Zabur. Likewise, you would find that sometimes there are traditions where the Imams love this surah so much, and one man in particular loves this surah more than any other, and I'll come to him later on. But the Imams love this surah so much that you'll even find they would eat certain food from a bowl where that surah was engraved. There is a tradition that Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam had some, let's say, pickle and oil. He was eating it from a bowl that had Surah Al-Ikhlas engraved around it. We have at home a small bowl. You know, our moms, sometimes they buy these things, and us guys are looking at them thinking, this is just klawat. I don't know what this is. Like, there's a small silver bowl with like a whole surah around it. And your mom will pour water in there and say, drink. And you'll turn around and say, Mom, what difference? I'm going to drink from a cup or I'm going to drink from a plate. It's all the same. We don't realize that in our parents' generation and their parents, they carried a lot more faith sometimes than we do. I won't deny that a lot of it is taqlidi, but that's for another day. But there was a lot more faith. And that faith that anything that has the Quran on it is a blessing. I go to some people's house these days and I look around the house and I see some wonderful art. And I'm a big fan of art. I love seeing art. But I'm wondering, where's the surah of the Quran? Or for example, where is the flag of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam? I'm not saying get a massive flag like the ones the guys have over here. But what I'm saying is that small flag. Now that bowl, Imam As-Sadiq, around it, it was engraved, which surah? Would you also believe, I don't think any of you here are dentists, are you? No one here is a dentist, your brother's a dentist. Dentists, if I'm going to go to them and I got a toothache, dentists are great. But you know, sometimes that pain can be so awkward. Now in those days, I don't think, you're a budding dentist. We've got big hopes on you. Inshallah, you'll look after us when you graduate in 6 years' time, inshallah. We have so much hopes in you, Minhal. And if I'm ever going to have a toothache, I'm going to remember Abu Basir. Abu Basir, companion of Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamu alayhima. Abu Basir narrates how he had a toothache. And what does Imam say to him? Imam says to him, put your hand over that area where the tooth is hurting you. Recite Surah Al-Fatiha. Recite Surah Al-Ikhlas. And then recite Surah 27, verse 88. Let's all go there quickly. You guys should now be at the fastest pace, and you, the viewers, as well. Surah 27, verse number 88, if I'm not mistaken. وَتَرَى الْجِبَالَ تَحْسَبُهَا جَامِدَةً وَهِيَ. What? This is a very important line over here. تَمُرُّ مَرَّ السَّحَابِ. And you see the mountains. You think them to be solid, and they shall pass away as the passing of the cloud. Now, they pass away as the passing of the cloud. That ache will pass away quickly. Someone here might say to me, Sayyidina, listen, do you know the technology that we have these days? I'm all for technology, but I'm not going to let go of mystical tradition. The world that we live in today is devoid of metaphysical discussions anymore. The world that we live in today becomes so entrenched in postmodernity that in some cases, not all, there is a place for postmodernity, but in some cases, you live in a world where the moment you mention heritage, the moment you mention spirituality related to God, not relative to any human being, then people start saying, no, but for us, what's wonderful is that surah like Surah Al-Ikhlas, even there is a study of looking at the Quran. I ask all of you, when you saw me looking at Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas a couple of days ago, did you wonder why is he looking at the verses when he's probably memorized it? Believe you me, I have memorized them. I have memorized Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas. And would you believe I've memorized Surah Al-Ikhlas? So why am I looking here? It's because there's even barakah for my eyes looking at the words of the Quran. The Quran being a shifa for a sadr which shaitan is trying to get through. يُوَسْوِسُ فِي صُدُورِ النَّاسِ. I want my chest to be guarded literally and metaphorically. And that's why you find someone like Muhsin Faith Kashani wonderfully giving a spiritual piece of advice: recite 50 ayahs of the Quran a day. 50 ayahs, any 50, doesn't have to be a specific 50. 50 ayahs, it brings that comfort. And one of the best surah that brings this comfort for you and for the dead, might I add. When you go to anyone's grave, you go to the maqbara or the qabristan, sit by the graves, recite this surah, Surah Al-Ikhlas, 11 times. And you're rewarded for every number of people who are in that maqbara. You know, there are certain schools in Islam that say you cannot read Quran for the dead. You cannot, for example, give a hadiyah of the Quran for the dead. Whereas for us, in the school of Ahlul Bayt, no. The Quran can be read as a hadiyah for those who have died. Therefore, let's go to the surah and let's see what's being said. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. By the way, have you noticed I haven't explained Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim? In the future I will, but not just now. Because I sometimes think that maybe us explaining Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim may take a number of sessions. Let's stick to what's happening. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قُلْ in قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ and قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, we talked about how قُلْ is the idea of complete submission. That look, I'm not going to walk around like a bad boy anymore. I walk through an alleyway in a certain part of London at 2 a.m. I'm no bad boy. I need falaq, I need nas. So the qul there, say, means admit that you aren't as brave as you think you are. Here, no. Here is say to him who's asking you, tell me about your Lord, what is he? Say to him, reply to him. Abdullah, the son of Surah. Abdullah, the son of Surah, was a member of the Jewish community. And he had come and asked the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his family, what seems like the most basic question. But I tell you what, it's probably the most difficult question. Tell me about your Lord, what is he? Tell me. You're a Muslim, yeah? And you haven't just inherited because mommy and daddy told you you're Muslim. You really believe in this religion? Tell me what your Lord is. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon his family, waited for the revelation a couple of days. You see, sometimes when we come to Surah Al-Duha, I'll show you how wahi sometimes comes every day, and sometimes the email stops sending for a while. Okay? Now, when you come here, the Holy Prophet's waiting until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then reveals to him, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Qul. Say to him. Say what? To the person who's asking the question. Qul. Say, Huwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's male? Why not Qul here? How many times when you talk about God, it's always God, you know, he's like really merciful. He's merciful. Why is not she? Is God male or female? I want all of you to focus on this area. How many times do you find people saying, you know what, why is God a male? Why does God have to be male? Why is God not a female? One of our close friends, Sayyid Sajjad Radawi, always you'll find him when he talks about God, he'll say, she said. Why? Purposely, because hold on a minute, God is neither male nor is he female. But look what I just said. God is neither male nor is he female. So now even when we talk about God, he created me. Why not she created me? I want to ask you a question. You ever seen a female sun? Have you ever seen a female sun or no? There's no female sun. Is there a female sun? Like the sun, is she, you know, the sun, she's shining bright. Someone's like, Sayyidina, there's no female sun. Well, in Arabic, one differentiator we need to make, which you can't make in English, and that is the difference between male and masculine, female and feminine. Sometimes you hear dhakar, and sometimes you hear mudhakkar. Sometimes you have untha and you hear the mu'anna. Now, when you come to this in the Quran, I asked you, the sun is a female? You're like, bro, what are you chatting about? It's the sun. I said, the sun is a female. Say, no, the sun is neither male or female. So why in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells me she's a female? Someone's like, what do you mean? Look in Surah Yasin. All of you have read Surah Yasin. And I bet you're all going to be used to this, this particular ayah. Which Surah Yasin, by the way, guys? Well done. Surah 36. Surah 36 of the Holy Quran. I go to about verse 38, I would imagine. Verse 38, probably, yeah. وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي. Some of you would have memorized this ayah. وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍ لَهَا. Hold on, why laha? It's a female? The sun's a female? No. In Arabic, maybe similar in Spanish, but not in English. English, he, male. She, female. Arabic, we have the male and the masculine, two completely different. And we have female and the feminine. The sun, is it a female? No. Likewise, the moon is a male. Is the moon a male? No, you wouldn't say to me the moon is a male. But when you look at the next verse, you go to verse number 39, وَالْقَمَرَ قَدَّرْنَاهُ مَنَازِلَ. So now we have the sun. Some people would think, no, we know the sun is not a female. So when we're looking therefore in the Arabic language, in contrast to English, we have male, and that is completely different from that which is described in the masculine form. And in Arabic, the masculine is the default. It's not that we're sexist and we're trying to be against females. The masculine is normally the default in Arabic. And we're not the only ones. In the Bible, how many times you said, he created the... In the Torah, it's the same. Because when you're looking, for example, at different languages, they all have different structures. For us in Arabic, the sun, we don't see it as being a male or a female. But when you're talking of the feminine versus the masculine, it's completely different from the male and for the female. Let's return. قُلْ هُوَ. Huwa. Okay, huwa. Huwa. What's happening here with huwa? This is very interesting. So, say he. Again, we're not referring to masculine. We're not referring to feminine. Huwa, the ha has a meaning and the wow has a meaning. Now this is where you go to Ahl al-Bayt and the depths of tafsir. Normally, what's English going to give you? Say he. And Muhammad say no. The letter ha means something. And the letter wow means something. The letter ha means you cannot give an exact fitting description of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the letter wow, you see, this word which seems so innocuous, look at the meaning. The letter ha, I cannot give a fitting description to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The letter wow is that my senses can never perceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Do you think this small word in the Quran, my Lord who's given me this holy book, is he just going to put any word in there, or some words have a huge meaning? When in the answer to the question he puts huwa, that means he's telling me there's a secret in huwa. Night of Badr, Imam Ali alayhi salam goes to sleep. In his dream he sees Prophet Khidr. Now Prophet Khidr is everywhere. I hope we get to see Prophet Khidr one day, but you know, he's in every story. He's got this huge role, like he's there at the beginning, he meets Moses, he meets the Prophet, he meets Imam Ali, he's going to be with Imam Mahdi, he's just got this magnificent role. And Prophet Khidr alayhi salam teaches a particular supplication, which is to be recited in the Battle of Badr. Now the next day is the Battle of Badr, and shortly we're going to talk about Abu Lahab and the Meccans and so on. But the next day is the Battle of Badr. And Imam Ali alayhi salam, here's a dua. This dua, make sure that you recite it when you're about to go to a big interview or a big meeting. Ya hu. Ya man la ilaha illa hu. Ya hu. Here, this huwa is not just, oh, I'm connecting, or I'm about to give, for example, as some try to mention, dhamir al-sha'in and things like, no. This has even a profound meaning. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, Ya Rasulullah, I saw Prophet Khidr in my dream. And he said to me, recite this dua. And the dua was, Ya Hu, Ya Man La ilaha illa Hu. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa said to him, Oh Ali, recite it, for within it is the greatest name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here what do we have? Qul huwa. So look how mundane some of the way we were taught Quran. Say he. Say he. This surah, which is 1/3 of the Quran, is only just say he. No. Even within the letters, there is a deeper spiritual meaning. Qul huwa Allahu. Now I'm replying to the one who's saying to me, what is Allah? Describe to me Allah. I now hear the Holy Prophet saying, Qul huwa Allahu. Of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that ism which is, it is jami', or it brings in all of the attributes. The one who is to be worshipped. Okay? Qul huwa Allahu ahad. Say to him, Allah is one. Is it really that simple? Allah is one? It seems so simple. But then someone says, Sayyidina, is it one as in number? When we're replying back to Abdullah who's asked, and we all believe, when you ask a Muslim, what do you believe about God? Say, there's only one God. Don't we always say that? We always say, there's only one God. One as in number? Why wouldn't it be one as number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Why wouldn't it be one as number? What is the danger? أحسنت. If it is a number, then it can be multiplied, can be divided. Nobody described this better. In a certain incident, Imam Ali alayhi salam in the Battle of Jamal. Battle of Jamal is in, it's literally all swords blazing. And you've got 25 years after the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, has died, his companions all killing each other. Now, Muslims love to throw the odd Jewish guy in the middle as if he's caused all the trouble. And people love to say it's a fitna and so on. I think it's pretty obvious, what's going on. And this Bedouin, he just comes out of the middle of the battlefield. He's like, where's Ali? They're like, what's the issue? What do you want? He goes, I want him to tell me, does he believe God is one? Now, people are like, listen, bro, we're in the middle of the biggest punch-up. 25 years after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died, we, the people of the Prophet, want to kill each other. And Imam Ali alayhi salam hears him. When Imam Ali alayhi salam hears him, he's like, bring him. This is the whole question surrounding why we're fighting today. He said, you asked me, do I believe Allah is ahad? There are 4 possibilities. 2 of them are correct, 2 are incorrect. Note these down. First possibility is that Allah is ahad, meaning number 1, wahid. Can't be. Because then we end up falling into which trap? They said God is 2. They said God is 3. They said God is 4. They said God is 15. Are there religions in the world who have more than one God? Yes. Second possibility, which is an impossibility, is that God is like one of the people. واحد من الناس. Sometimes you hear the phrase, هذا واحد من الناس. هذا واحد من الشباب. هذا واحد من الجماعة. That you can't. Can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be the same as His creation? No. Did some people make Allah one of His creation? In their accusation of Allah becoming a creation? Yes. There are those who believed, for example, in incarnation. God coming in the form of a human being. So those 2, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, ahad in number? No. Ahad in terms of the same as his people? No. Ahad meaning ماكو أحد يشبه. يشبه له أصلا ماكو أحد. When you say that, you say there's no one who is similar to him. Ahad. None is like him. and at the same time indivisible. You cannot divide him into Allah in my imagination, Allah in reality. Cannot be divided. So therefore, when he replied back to the Jewish person who asked the question, he replies by saying, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Say Allah is one. Never should we fall in the trap of thinking Ahad means the number one. But it doesn't stop there. Doesn't stop there. He continues. And this area, by the way, where we said Ahad is huge, because there are Muslims in the world today, in their definition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is completely different from each other. Completely different. When you want to study Tawheed further and want to study Ahad, Tawheed, they all are, related to each other. You will have discussions of attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the essence of Allah. Are the attributes part of His essence, or are the attributes separate from His essence? Then you have discussions concerning Tawheed al-Af'al, Tawheed al-Ibadah. All of these discussions bring about differences in the Muslim community concerning Tawheed. And that's why, without the guidance of Al Muhammad, you can end up with the wrong understanding of Tawheed. Sometimes Al Muhammad in their ahadith would say, don't talk about Allah being Ahad or Tawheed. Stay away. Because if you're not fit to understand these things, you end up being like those groups who, for example, said His attributes are one thing, His essence is another. You end up being like those groups who said Allah has a hand. Allah has a hand. Allah has feet. Allah has eyes. Someone says, what do you mean Allah doesn't have eyes? He told Nabi Nuh, build the ark under our eyes. He said, Yadullah fawqa aydihim. His hand was above their hand. Even further than that, He sits on a kursi. You can't sit on a kursi unless you are of a particular physical form. There are those even in Islam who didn't understand the meaning of Ahad. Some of them said Allah sits on a throne, He has a long beard, He has one of them even said Allah jogs. Now, what I'm not understanding is if my Lord can be contained in a certain place, that means my Lord can be defined. And that which is defined is limited. And that which is limited should not be worshipped. Why am I worshipping the one who is so limited, that can be defined in a certain place? قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ. Who here can define for me Samad, please? You've all obviously recited Surah Al-Ikhlas. The dear viewers have recited Surah Al-Ikhlas all their lives. I want one person to tell me what the meaning of Samad is. And if the Muslim community is not able to tell me the meaning of Samad, then our neglect of the Holy Quran is something we're going to have to change, inshaAllah. I guarantee you that there are so many Muslims out there, they'll judge this person, they'll bring down from this person, they'll attack this person. Baba, forget these qasas. Focus on knowing the meaning of the word Samad. Allah Samad, how is it normally translated? Allah is needless. Would that be one of the translations? Allah is not in need. What is Samadiyya? The Jewish person is asking the Prophet, tell me about your Lord. The Prophet replied to him by saying that He is one. And then he said, Allahu Samad. I'm not stopping at one, that's not enough. Allahu Samad. There was one explanation of Allah Samad which is unique from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, salawatullah wa salamu alayhim. And that's why every time you want an understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only place you could get it in Islam is with Al Muhammad. Go to all tafsir of the Quran online on the internet now. They always will never quote Imam al-Sadiq or Imam al-Baqir or Imam Ali alayhi salam. Isn't that true? There are many tafsir online. They stop at Rasulullah, then they have nothing else to quote. One of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, do you know what he said? He said, look at the word Samad, you'll know the meaning, it's within. And the way he explained it is unbelievable. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ Allahu Samad. Or do I say Allahul Samad? Which one? Allahu Samad. Do you agree? He said the alif and lam and sad and mim and dal All of them are the definitions of Samad. How? Alif and Lam, you don't recite them in this word, do you? He goes, likewise, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Samadiyya is that He's subtle and hidden from all of us. Look how subtle the Alif and Lam is. قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ اللَّهُ الصَّمَدُ. Where's the Alif and Lam? So the same way Alif and Lam is subtly hidden, likewise your Lord is subtly hidden. One part of Samadiyya. Second part, Sad. He is Sadiq. Third part, what do we have? Or the fourth part, what do we have? Mim. He is the Malik. He is the highest master, not in need of any loan, not in need of any helper. Fifth one, Dal, Da'im. I think in the munajat of Imam Ali alayhi salam, Mawla ya Mawla, Anta al-Mawla, Anta al-Da'imu wa ana al-Zal. Wa hal yarhamu al-Zal illa al-Da'im. Samadiyya means, although He is hidden and subtly hidden, that our senses cannot see Him, His message is full of truth. He is the master and owns everything, and that He is eternal and everlasting. Allahu Samad. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam in Nahj al-Balagha, sermon number 1 of the Nahj, gives the most unbelievable description of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many scholars, when they talk about Surah Al-Ikhlas and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, never talk about Imam Ali's description from the Nahj. Praise is due to Allah, whose worth cannot be described by speakers. Who am I to describe? Whose bounties cannot be counted by calculators, and whose claim to obedience cannot be satisfied by those who attempt to do so, whom the height of intellectual courage cannot appreciate, and the divings of understanding cannot reach. He for whose description no limit has been laid down, no eulogy exists, no time is ordained, no duration is fixed. He brought forth creation through His omnipotence, dispersed winds through His compassion, and made firm the shaking earth with rocks. The foremost in religion is the acknowledgement of Him. Sermon 1 of Nahj al-Balagha. The perfection of acknowledging Him is to testify Him. The perfection of testifying Him is to believe in His oneness. The perfection of believing in His oneness is to regard Him pure. And the perfection of His purity is to deny Him attributes. Because every attribute is a proof that it is different from that to which it is being attributed. And everything to which something is attributed is different from the attribute. Thus, whoever attaches attributes to Allah recognizes His like. And whoever recognizes His like regards Him as true. And whoever regards Him as true recognizes parts for Him. And whoever recognizes parts for Him mistook Him. And whoever mistook Him pointed at Him. And whoever pointed at Him admitted limitations for Him. And whoever admitted limitations for Him numbered Him. Have you seen description of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like Amir al-Mu'mineen? There is not one person living around the Prophet, peace be upon him and his family, who could describe God like Ali ibn Abi Talib. And there is none like his wife Fatima in her description in the khutbah given after Fadak was confiscated. How many of you have read the description of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone? The complement of Surah Al-Ikhlas is who? Is Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. The way he describes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in different moments is unbelievable. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. No material, nor any spiritual thing is born out of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know how when we think of something, it's born out of our mind. We don't do that when we talk of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look, we get to a stage where I can't explain Allah's essence. You know when you get to that no man's land stage? And I think everyone at home has had that moment where you're like, okay, let me try and understand God. And for some reason, when it happens with me, I start thinking blue skies. And then I'm trying to think, hold on, so what's there before God? What's this? And then you get to a no man's land phase. The reality for me is that I cannot compare Allah to His creation. Me, I may think of something and it's created. For Allah, He's not in the dimension of time for Him to be, for example, cornered into the dimension of time. So what we have is, no one can say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is created. And Imam has a lovely answer to this. Imam, in his answer, he says, if he's created by someone, he's got to share his glory with that one. And then he says, and if he gives birth, or, for example, he has children, then they have to have a share of his inheritance. لم يلد ولم يولد. And that's why we differ in the Quran with those who started saying God the Father, God the Son, God is the mother of God. If you look, for example, in Surah 5, verse number 73, I'm sure you've all come across this ayah in Surah 5, verse 73. And many people always ask about the Trinity in the Quran. And there are different ayahs in Surah Al-Ma'idah and Surah Al-Nisa about the Trinity in the Quran. But when you look, when the Quran comes to talk about the Trinity, the verse says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثُ ثَلَاثٍ. Certainly they disbelieve those who say, surely Allah is the third of the three. This ayah is an ayah which shows you that we have a complete difference of opinion to those who say that Jesus is, for example, the Son of God, but at a certain time He is God. Then you ask many questions concerning, well, if He is God on earth, who's He speaking to when He prays? For example, if He's praying, who's He praying to? When He goes back to being God in heaven, is it God there? Is it Christ there? Who are we looking forward to seeing there? So there is a clear difference that exists with the Trinity. And so what you have, sometimes people say, Allahu Samad, the definition of Samad is Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam has this discussion that if someone asks you, what is Samadiyya? Lam yalid wa lam yulad. Wa lam yakul lahu. I sometimes hear people say, Kufuwan ahad, Kufuwan ahad, Kufu'an ahad. All of these are different readings. There's no real issue there. But is there anything, when you're looking, can anything be compared to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? The reality is no. As much as you look at human beings, the greatest of the greatest of the greatest, even those human beings will say that we are simply servants of the Lord. And that's why I have no doubt that in that description you have with Imam Ali alayhi salam, Imam Ali loved reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas. Number one, he's the embodiment of Ikhlas. Number two, you know where he'd recite it? Shia, we have a unique thing in our Salat al-Jama'ah. We recite really small surah, don't we? Non-Shia, at Fajr, now I rate the guy's memory, but 171 verses later, bro, we all need to get to bed. And not only do we all need to get to bed, but that 79-year-old standing next to me is about to pass away. You doing Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Fajr, that 79-year-old is on the verge of collapsing. Many of our Mawlanas, you'll see them reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas because Imam Ali alayhi salam used to love it. And they complained about him. They complained. There was a Sariyah which the Prophet had sent, expedition. Imam Ali leading it. He asked the companions, how did you find his leadership? The reply here is unreal. By the way, in some non-Shia literature, they don't write Ali, they say Rajul. They were scared of the authorities that if you narrate something praising Imam Ali, you may end up being in prison. Or some of them just hated Imam Ali. So, said, how did you find the expedition under Ali? They said, yeah, it's good. But he recited, the only problem was he read Surah Al-Ikhlas in every salah. I beg you, is that a problem? Yani, how much haqid must you have? You know when you've got people who just love picking things. He says to him, Ali, did you recite Surah Al-Ikhlas every salah? I said, yes, I did. He said, why? He said, I love it. He said, you did not love it until Allah loved you. Meaning that surah, Surah Al-Ikhlas, was a favorite of Al Muhammad. That's why Imam Ali alayhi salam says, in Salat al-Jama'ah, think of the eldest. Complete different from other schools in Islam, where the eldest could end up having his janazah in the middle of a ruk'ah. For us, small surah, comfortable, relaxed, enjoy salah. Long surah, we start thinking about every meeting we have tomorrow. 1/3 of the Quran, if you recite it, it's like reciting Surah Al-Ikhlas. You recite Surah Al-Ikhlas twice, 2/3 of the Quran. You recite it 3 times, it's the complete Quran. Same with Imam Ali alayhi salam, the Prophet said. If you love him with your heart, that's 1/3 of faith. And you love him with your tongue, that's 2/3 of faith. And if you give your hands away to him, that's complete faith. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. We're off to the adhan break. And we'll come back looking at Imam Ali's uncle, Abu Lahab.